And I was actually like in the most desperate moment because nothing else worked. I would have to have my colon removed. And I was already contemplating wearing a nappy because you end up going to the toilet like 40 times a day. Like you're bleeding so much and it's just hell.
Thank you for joining me today. If you're new to my channel, my name's David Florence. I set up a channel called Evolution of Dave at the end of 2017 when I had a bit of a wake-up call, a literal bang to the head that made me think differently about my own physical health and my mental health. It changed my condition. And breath work was always at the core of this, doing the Wim Hof method. And then more recently, when I qualified as a SOMA Breath instructor, this became the predominant daily practice. Niraj Naik, you may well have heard of him. Certainly if you're in the world of breath work and understand breath work, then you will have heard of him. A lovely chap, wonderful guy. I've spoken to him a couple of times, and he is the founder of SOMA Breath. And I'm going to turn you over to him in a second. And the subject today is his healing. So there are many people that have healed using natural methods, and Niraj has got an incredible story of his healing using the SOMA methods. But what I'll do now is I'll introduce you to Niraj. And then Niraj, if you just want to say hi, introduce yourself, and then crack on with your story, that would be great.
Sure. So actually, we go back a while because of the internet entrepreneurial community that we were both members of.
Yes.
From a while ago. So yeah, that was actually in a way that was one of the best things that happened, getting involved with that.
Really?
Because that was, yeah, it gave me a lot of self-esteem, confidence as a mentor, as a coach. And I got in with a world of a lot of people who also had or were starting online businesses, people who already had it. So I didn't feel so alien. Because one of the biggest problems is in society is when people feel lonely and isolated and don't feel like they fit in or belong. And this sense of community has kind of been missing because we've become quite robotized as a society, and culture has kind of been force-fed at us. And a lot of people get dissatisfied with the whole 9-to-5 culture, you know, getting up to do a job you don't really want to do, coming home from work, or having traveled maybe like an hour commute there and back, and then sitting in front of the TV watching, you know, Come Dancing or whatever else is EastEnders, whatever else they throw at us. And then you go and eat the same meal every single night, you know, the same variety of processed ready meals every single day and night. And that culture, some people love it, and others, they just get very stressed out, burnt out. They know that something's missing, and they have a breakdown usually, quite often. So that's actually what happened to me, you know. So I actually ticked all the boxes, you know. I of being a good citizen. I became a pharmacist, had the nice Jaguar car. You know, I did everything that parents told me to do when it came to education, and you know, I even got to a point where I was thinking of getting a mortgage. I'm so glad I didn't. But I also got into debt, a lot of debt, you know. So I was already like on the edge of a nervous breakdown for a long period of time doing this job, because I'm an artist, I'm a creative person, I'm a musician. And actually, when I was younger, I had a very, before that university days, I had a really different lifestyle to even now. And I used to run these big music events, these big raves in the UK, like 2,000 people raves, like for 3 years, every single month.
Wow.
And that was actually like my real passion. But then one thing happened, long story, but I ended up like losing that whole events business, and I ended up going into pharmacy and becoming a pharmacist, because that's what I did at university. And it's just such a shock to start to do something that you don't really want to do. And I think a lot of people get these kind of disillusionments from their career because they have this incredible experience of university, socializing, having fun, but you're so detached from the real world. And then once you get into getting a job, you start to realize like something deeply missing on culture and society. And some people get through it really well, and I think the creative people like us, we're just not built to be robots. We're not robotic people. So for a long time, what I could also see was there's a big problem in the healthcare system. I just felt like the number one reason for going to a doctor or a pharmacist or something like that is really you want to get well, you want to get better. But I found that actually people didn't seem to be getting better. And it didn't make sense. Like, why are people taking so many drugs? It just didn't make sense. There were so many things in the healthcare system that just didn't add up. Eventually, I had a bit of a breakdown, and I went to a Tony Robbins event. A friend actually dragged me to it because I was at such a low point in my life, and he bought me a ticket, so I had no choice. That was the last thing I wanted to do, was go to a rah-rah kind of guru motivator thing. But anyway, I thought I was too cool for school back then. But anyway, so I went, and it was life-changing. And that was the last day, it was the first time I had anyone ever talk about diet, nutrition, stress, even breathing and meditation kind of stuff. And so it was eye-opening, because you don't get taught this stuff at university. So you think that actually the drugs are the only things that help, or surgery. That's the medicine, but it's not really. The medicine's a bit more deeper than that. So I thought, well, look, in a pharmacy, I actually have the perfect opportunity to test out this stuff, this Tony Robbins event, because you're always getting sick people. So I was like, oh, I'm going to put Mr. Robbins to the test. And I started to put out, I created a system to give out healthy shopping lists to patients based on their conditions. And this was basically just changing their diet. The first thing actually the doctors do is they swear on the Hippocratic Oath, which is first do no harm. And actually the actual original schools of medicine were all about holistic health, and diet was an important, let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food. That's what Hippocrates said. So I started to actually get people off processed foods. It was amazing how many people were on just processed diets, where each meal was something you put in a microwave. It comes in a packet. So just very simply, I just made swaps for with I had to even actually send people to videos on YouTube where they could actually learn how to cook food. It was amazing how few people actually knew how to even make their own food. It was crazy. So those who actually followed my advice started to get better, especially diabetic, type 2 diabetes. Very, very good success with that. Anyway, long story short, I got fired from my first job, but then the second one was I actually wrote this was the funny one, because I wrote a CV on monster.com, all the reasons why I never want to be a pharmacist again, and what I thought of the system. But I never thought anyone would want to hire me again after that. But I did actually got headhunted to a massive supermarket chain in the UK. I got promoted to the head office of this company, because I came up with this idea of healthy shopping lists given out by pharmacists, or have a website where you can get them. And actually, it was an incredible journey going through that, and then working my way up to the head office of this big company. And I was like, yes. But as soon as I got there, it was so cutthroat, the whole environment of working in a corporate head office, and these weird hierarchies that you get, and I actually was like the teacher's pet, because I was on this pet project that they had. And that didn't do me favors with all the extremely paranoid managers up there who feared that I was going to take their jobs. And eventually, 6 months into it, the whole project got shelved. Who knows the exact reasons why, but it did. And I got hit with an illness at this time called ulcerative colitis, which is also an autoimmune condition. And I was housebound for a year. And this was like a taste of my own medicine. It's a massive wake-up call. And So firstly, what happened was I was so disillusioned with the fact that this project wasn't going to go ahead. I was really scared I was going to have to go back to being a pharmacist, doing something I really didn't want to do. And I worked so hard to get out of that situation. So I was so disillusioned. I lost my faith in spirit, humanity, everything. And then boom, I was really sick. And then I remember going to the consultant doctor. And I knew a little bit about health now. I knew about the diet and how it could help people. So I asked the doctor, what about diets? What about stress? What about exercise? Like, what are the things I can do? And she said, well, there's no evidence that stress has any effect on this condition. No evidence that diet does. So medication is the only thing you can do.
Wow.
So, and she said, if that doesn't work, you have to get your colon removed. It was super cold experience in healthcare. So I was just so distraught and disillusioned. And anything you read online, it's all doom and gloom. This is incurable. And there was horror stories of what happened to patients when the symptoms went out of control. And I could see I was heading in that direction. There's a lot of fear. And then the big moment, fate came along. And I was actually in the most desperate moment because nothing else worked. I would have to have my colon removed. And I was already contemplating wearing a nappy because you end up going to the toilet 40 times a day. You're bleeding so much and it's just hell. So actually I started to pray literally. And along came somebody who basically just saved my life. And she said that you've got to gift it. If you can heal yourself without the medications and the surgery, you'd be an amazing role model. And this could give you a new mission, new purpose in your life. So I was ready to just try anything. And I'm very skeptical. So, I wasn't that versed with all of the more esoteric meditation, things like yoga, and this stuff that comes from my own Indian culture, wasn't something that was familiar to me, surprisingly. So anyway, I gave her a go, and she started to teach me the fundamentals of pranayama, Ayurveda, and yoga. And she gave me a few resources. I went super deep into these subjects, and then within a few months, boom, I had transformed myself, I healed myself. And I started to go down this rabbit hole of learning a lot about these different things. There's this amazing book by an actual pharmacist as well, Dr. Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And he talks about how you can, he was actually he was a Christian, into Christian science techniques and prayer, called it scientific prayers. But he was also into Ayurveda and Eastern mysticism. And he combined the two together and talked about how you could use these special mantras to reprogram the unconscious mind. So I was really going into all of this stuff. And he was actually one of the inspirers of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins was really into Joseph Murphy. So there was all these links of how this wisdom all connected to each other. And pranayama, I found these certain techniques for switching off to stress, and then getting through rhythmic breathing, getting into really deep meditative states. When you combine that with going into a sauna, so I lived quite near to this amazing health spa called Nirvana Spa. And I used to go there and it was like church. It was like going into church. And I'll do this special prayer techniques, using visualization techniques with this pranayama techniques of breathing, extending your exhalation in a rhythm. So breathing out for 4, in for 2 in a cycle. And then doing certain techniques like chanting or extending your exhalation. And what you could do is use visualization techniques to go in and reprogram the consciousness, the subconsciousness. So like an operating system, if you imagine that's your mind, you go in there and like a computer programmer, reprogram your own source of where your thoughts come from. And autoimmune disease is basically where your immune system it gets confused and it starts to attack its own cells. So it's like your immune system's attacking itself. And like you start to figure out, where does this confusion come from? And if you go back, and this is the really interesting thing about the Ayurvedic and Vedic philosophy, that is, the cells are connected to each other on the foundation of love, trust, cooperation, collaboration. That's what our cells came together as. And if you think back to evolution, we were actually at some point like just a sea of single cell organisms fighting with each other. So one community would rise and then take over the territory of another one, devour all of its resources, and they'd be constantly fighting with each other until one day they came together, the same fundamental basis of love, trust, connection, collaboration, cooperation, and communication. All right, most of all, and they started to communicate with each other, and they formed multicellular organisms which were stronger, more stable than the ones before. And then that eventually led, over millions of years of evolution, to us, to who we are. So still, if you look at the zygote, if you look at the division of the cells when you're in the womb, all the cells come together in a very organized, coherent way. And that's life, that's who you are. And every cell works with each other symbiotically. So the thing is, when you have a lot of fear in your environment, negativity, hostility, it affects this communication, this bond that every cell has, and they get confused, right? So the stress, the fear, hate, anger, all these emotions that we hold on to, it could be something that happened in the past, it could be something that's going on in your environment, it could be that you're getting bullied, you're getting traumatized by things, you could have a job that you hate and you have no enthusiasm for it. So you're waking up every day stressed out and fearful. And what happens is the communication between cells gets disrupted, and your cells go into defense mode, and they stop thriving, they stop replicating the way they should, and your immune system gets affected, and the immune system can then start to get confused at what's actually foreign and what's not. So it starts to attack healthy cells, and then that leads to autoimmune. So the change in perception about your environment, making peace with your environment, is the first step. And that way, what happens is you change the communication with every cell. So using visualization techniques, using mantras, going into amazing environments where you're feeling like you're in a church, a sanctuary, like the sauna, deep saunas, it gets lots of blood flow to the endocrine glands, and especially in the third eye, so you're getting a lot of blood flow. And when you're meditating in this state, and you're using these breathing techniques, you can actually repattern all of this communication. You can re-imprint a new perception of reality, and then boom, that's the first trigger to healing. Then you have to put in the building blocks to give your cells the right nutrition and the right factors, growth factors, immune factors that can actually repair damaged cells. And they say that most diseases start in the gut. And I had an autoimmune disease of the colon, and I discovered one substance called colostrum, which is actually an Ayurvedic treatment from thousands of years ago, where they would use the first milk of a cow, and a cow makes like very potent colostrum, like 1,000 times more potent than human colostrum, and it makes massive volumes of it, way more than the calf needs. So the Ayurvedic doctors would take an excess of it and treat humans with it. And what it does is it stimulates rapid healing, repair of the gut. And it helps actually, what colostrum does, we all consume it when we're born. It's the first milk we consume. But sometimes that colostrum is not to the optimum it could be. Your mother may be under a lot of stress, so she's not producing optimum amounts, or you weren't breastfed, may have gone straight into bottled milk, which is very common actually. It happens more often than you think. So this can affect childhood immunities. And then, so if you haven't got the right building blocks from the beginning of when you're born, this can affect you later on. So, but the great thing is with colostrum from cows, we can fix that, we can reverse that. So I started to use this colostrum. I was like blown away by it. And here's the other thing. I believe if you exercise just one side of the brain over and over and over again, and if your brain is also multitasking, the neurocortex actually can suffer from a lot of stress because it's only designed to do one thing at a time. So it hates multitasking. But then also, if you're only exercising the left side of the brain, the more analytical side, it also can lead to disharmony in the body. So it's really important to also stimulate the right side, the creative, imaginative, dreamy part of the mind. And music's one of the best ways to do it. Actually, it's shown in numerous studies with brain maps that you light up all areas of the brain when you listen to music you really like or you start playing an instrument. So I started to get back into my music, which I'd kind of ignored because of the problem I had, losing my whole thing and becoming a pharmacist. I kind of lost my connection with it. And I started to find music was an even more powerful therapeutic tool combined with all these techniques I was doing. And then that eventually led to me creating a therapy-based business based around music and breath. And then actually people started to use it, like therapists started to use it. Some well-known therapists like Mirza Sapir started to use it. And I also read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. So actually what happened was a lot of things. I found a strategy out of my situation I was in. That was the way to make peace, was to not just look at myself as a victim, but look at how do I get out of this situation, this prison that I've created for myself. Because it's all in the mind. You create everything. So once you understand that, like, okay, so I hate my job. All right, so I need to do something that I love. But how do I make money doing what I love? Well, if you combine the internet and you combine your passion with something that is rewarding to the market, people demand, right? Then you can actually start to make some income. And if you learn how to run an automated business online, it makes the whole thing easy. So the 4-hour work week was the strategy to get out of my job. The second thing was my health. So I found that strategy for my health. And then the other thing was that was actually all of that was like, those ingredients was like making peace from the situation. Financial stress started to go away. I was location, I didn't want to live in England anymore. So you're like, wow, how can I not have to live here anymore? I wanted to live, on a tropical island and have my own spa, in the tropics. And in order to do that, you also need some kind of automated online income. So all of these boxes were ticked. 4-hour work week, learning these holistic techniques for health, well-being, and then focusing on music, creativity, which was the spiritual side that will heal a lot of people in itself. So I feel that everyone, whatever situation you're in, if you don't look at yourself as a victim anymore, and you start to now think of opportunities to grow, to learn new skills, to find strategies, the easiest way to do it is just to see who else out there is doing what you want to be doing right now. So yeah, so for me, it was like really changing my environment, going back into my passion, combining my wanting to help people with something that already helps me prove time tests, and then helping other people do that, and then finding a way to create a business around it. That's the healing journey I recommend to everyone to embrace.
Totally. You know what I love about your story? It's you. And I think this is why your story resonates with so many people, is because you are a normal bloke. You haven't come, as you say, from this esoteric background. You haven't come from a healing background. You haven't been practicing yoga since the day you were born and have had that kind of lifestyle. You've had, be it forced or otherwise, a typical UK existence, where, because of also your upbringing, of an Indian upbringing, it is very much still, although I know it's a bit of a generalization, it is still very much focused around work really hard, get a labeled title as a job, be it a doctor, pharmacist, or lawyer, whatever it is, and then you've made it. Then you have a family, and that is success. So you had a lot of things to fight there, because you knew that your passion was there. It was inherent, and that's the thing that got you up in the morning when you were doing those raves. I can only imagine what it must have been like. You know, I used to do acting, so I know what it's like to be on a stage, and this feeling of having an audience look to you for your energy, and you're creating and directing that energy is an amazing feeling. So to go from that to something as I'll choose my words carefully here, but well, let's say clinical, and probably quite banal by comparison.
Soulless, soul destroying.
Yes, thank you. So to go from that big contrast would have been pretty tough in itself, and then to hear obviously those, by being in the corporate world, being surrounded by the fear and anxiety and stress of others, that will only have an impact on you. And I think the reason why your story resonates is because you've gone through that, and there are a hell of a lot of people in this country, in the US and Australia, just Western lives are so typical of that kind of story, aren't they? You know, it's the wrong mindset. The priorities are kind of a bit skewed. We don't link the idea of having a passion and turning it into a job, because in our minds we just don't really compute that. It doesn't figure. We are much better off sitting in front of a computer all day doing an office job. That makes more sense because it draws in a monthly income. So brilliant, amazing story, resonates with all, as we know. Given what you've gone through, it's never a case, as I know, you can't just have this one panacea that you do for 60 days, half a year, and then that's it, you're healed. This journey, yours, mine, everybody else's, is continual. You never get to a point where you've figured it out. And that's the whole point. It's a process, it's a journey. So you have to have some kind of daily routine, I would imagine. I do. But what's yours? What is your routine that's preventative, that prevents these big issues from occurring, aside from living in a lovely place like Thailand, which I know will help?
Well, that's great questions. So actually, they say, cure, actually what it means is to bring somebody back to your original state. So it's like bringing yourself back to who you were before the illness happened. So you're never actually really cured with my system. You're actually a completely different person at the end of it. And that's where the cure comes in, because it's your character, your personality, your environment, who you are, as above, so below. Your inner world becomes your outer world, which is all these ancient philosophies. It's so true. We become what we think, act, and do. And so in order to cure yourself from disease, you have to become the person that wouldn't have that illness, if you know what I mean. So that requires, for most people, a total change in your lifestyle. So a morning routine, which most people's morning routine is like this. You get up 7 in the morning or whatever. You don't want to get up. You just like really loathe the alarm clock every single morning, and you like smash that alarm clock. You get hit with the stress right from the morning. And this actually shoots up these beta brainwaves, which are these like brainwaves that are to do with like stress and attention and just like getting into fight and flight kind of mode. And then you will eat like a processed breakfast, like cereals like cornflakes and whatever, and then sugar maybe in your coffee, like tea, maybe down a few coffees before you even get out the door. And then you might stay in a commute for an hour or so, maybe driving, or you're stuck on the train. And then you go and do a job that you don't want to do, and you're behind on work, so you've got the boss on your case. And pretty much all day long, you're stressed out. You may have like a 10-minute lunch break, whatever, and you scoff down a sandwich and eat a packet of crisps or something, or McDonald's or something, right? And then you do the same thing. You come home, you're on a commute, and you get home and you just collapse in front of the TV, like eat pizza or something, down a few beers. And then like, no wonder you're going to get sick, right? So you have to break a lot of those patterns. And that's the only way people can change. And what I found is the people who don't want to get well, right? And there's people who don't want to get well unconsciously because they're too comfortably numb. They don't want to do. They've realized that it's actually too much effort. They don't want to do the thing. They become apathetic. And that's where you don't want to get to, that state. And you want to try and I reckon the people who are watching this video right now, they haven't got that point yet. So the best thing to do right now is to do a few things. And that's to ask yourself this question every single, I do this, it's part of my morning routine. Am I waking up with absolute enthusiasm to do a hard day's work? Or am I waking up feeling I'm just having to do this to survive? You know, because the more often you wake up feeling like you have to do this and it's a chore and, oh, I don't want to do this, that's stress. That is stress. So when you have enthusiasm, that's a different energy state. Your whole chemistry of your body is different. You produce dopamine, you produce adrenaline, you produce endorphins. You know, you actually expand. You produce this hormone called DHEA, which is an anti-aging hormone, like in abundance. And you're just in a coherent state, or you're full of joy. Versus if you are waking up unenthusiastic for life, apathetic, stressed, depressed, it's a whole different posture. You're stressed, you're tense, the blood isn't flowing through your body anymore, you're not even connecting with people, you don't even make eye contact anymore, and you lose a huge part of the physiology that deals with preventing disease. All right, so the endorphins, the neuropeptides, all these positive hormones that actually make your immune system healthy and not confused. So what we want to do is we want to change our state from the moment we wake up. You know, from when we get up. If we wake up in enthusiasm, I'm not talking about fake enthusiasm, I'm like honest, genuine enthusiasm. And that doesn't mean like you have to suddenly quit your job and become a guitar teacher or whatever. No, you can actually become enthusiastic for life, even whilst doing a job that you don't want to do, because you have a plan, a master plan to get out of it. And you start looking at life like a game instead. And then what happens is your whole demeanor changes. When you look at, or I'm going to go to my job today because I know that this money is going to help me pay for this new website I'm creating that's going to help me reach all these people with my passion. Or I'm going to create this Amazon thing or whatever, right? So if you focus on strategy and look at people who already achieved what it is that you want to do, and you look at them as like mentors even, you know, and they don't have to be like telling you to your face like what to do, but they may have books, they may have autobiographies, they may have strategies, courses, whatever, like we do, right? And you just follow a proven system. I could say guarantee success. Find a few people that you really trust, who live in and breathe in what you want to do. It can give you a lot of hope and enthusiasm, even for doing a job that you don't want to do, because you know it's temporary there. That's the first thing. So I always have strategies, mission. My whole business and my life revolves around a mission. You know, there's something we're achieving that's going to help a lot of people. So that drives you forward in the morning, stops you from being lazy and procrastinating. But another habit, and my girlfriend's really much better at me than this, is to get up and actually start doing some exercise. It's the energized meditation. So we'll have a warm-up with like hypoxic training exercises where you're doing anaerobic exercise, and then some like yoga techniques, and then pranayama, our SOMA daily dose usually to finish it. Or I'd sometimes do that at the beginning and then do a much more of an intense workout because it supercharges you for your exercise. I kind of naturally do intermittent fasting because I do that exercise.
You do, yeah.
And I don't eat very late. So I'm kind of doing intermittent fasting, and then I don't usually have lunch, and I'll have a dinner. And but during the day, I mean, the morning routine is, as you know, like the energized meditation. That's like most of the exercise. I do it in a short period during the day. But I would also during the afternoon or breaks, I'll do during work actually, whereas I'm working, I'm always having a break actually to do some exercise. I actually have this app called Chair Guru, which actually, I don't know if you've got it yet. You should
Y-
test it out.
Yeah, I've done the beta. Yeah, I've tried the beta.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very,
yeah.
very good.
Well,
We
yeah, it's
really work
getting.
well in the corporate sector. Yeah, it's brilliant.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, we need to get out there. So I have this
Yeah.
app called ShareGuru. So it's a Chrome plugin, and it gives you an alert every hour to do like a 2 or 3 minute exercise. So it's like a breathing technique or stretching, meditation type techniques, and it's really good because it means you do something throughout the day. You know, because like one of the worst things you can do for your health is being fully sedentary. All right. So movement is really key.
But you know
Low
what?
moderate exercise during the
I met
day.
with somebody, a friend, and obviously during this lockdown, everybody's working from home. And he said to me, "You know what, Dave? I'm obviously sat in front of the computer doing Zoom calls all day. That's all we do. That's our meetings. We're Zoom calls." And he said, and sometimes I will have realized I've sat there all morning from 8 through to about 12 or 1, and I haven't moved. And
Wow.
I don't think he's an anomaly. I think this is now one of the biggest concerns
Yeah.
you probably have in this country.
Yeah.
People that are locked in during lockdown, you know, this whole use of
So
technology, which is,
ShareGuru,
yeah,
we're gonna get it
this is
out.
where it'd be helpful. Yeah, because people,
Yeah.
they need a reminder, they need a distraction to take them away from this, you know, this, as you say, the robotization of using technology. You need something that goes ping, that makes you go, oh yeah, okay, I better go down and do some press ups or do some
Yeah.
stretches or breathing. Yeah, I think
Yes.
it is absolutely key right now more than any other time. The whole purpose of what I now do, you know, my journey's a little bit different to yours, but it is a journey that has come from a smack in the face, a realization that there is a better way of living. Now, I haven't quite got it all
Yes.
figured out yet. Whether or not I will do, who knows? But of the things that I know, I am much more aware of are the priorities around health, around family. And the funny thing is that one of the things I know you did, because you mentioned this before, which I think is really important for everybody. If you're in a state where you know you want to change, well, that's brilliant. That's the catalyst to all these things. You know, sometimes it takes a real wake-up call. That's what it did for me. For you, it's a pretty significant health condition. And once you've got that idea, that's great. But the problem is, if you've got this idea and you're full of enthusiasm and you're surrounded by people that are negative thinkers, unfortunately, that's probably going to bring you down, and you may not realize your potential. What you did was brilliant, wasn't it? You decided, right, I need to surround myself by others that think and do like me. Doesn't mean that they have to be breath workers. They just have to think in a positive state and know that there is a better way of living. And right now, I think if people need to do that, they can only really do it properly online, which is a real shame, because the real physical interaction of meeting with others that think like you, that's where the energy is. But by being part of a tribe, be it the SOMA Breath tribe, which is an incredible tribe. I mean, I don't know how many people are in that group already. I mean, it's thousands.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But you know that there's lots of other tribes out there, and it's funny, isn't it, that this is what we are meant to be doing. If you look back to our hunter-gatherer days, that's who we were. We were part of a tribe. We worked collectively. We all had a role, and that's what we've
Yes.
lost. And that's why we're clamoring for this now. That's why we want to be part of a group of like-minded thinkers, and that's the only way you're going to progress. That's the only way you're going to sort your life out, is by being around others that go, "That's a brilliant idea. Roll with it," you know. Because otherwise people are going to bring you down. Unfortunately, it's a sad state of affairs. But
Yeah,
anyway,
there's a tribe. There's a tribe for every vibe.
yes, there is, there isn't there? Absolutely. And you've got to figure that out yourself. There's no point you joining things that just aren't clicking with you. You have to find something that you love and find others that do it too. And that is it. That's simple.
Yeah. Beautiful, man.
This is really cool. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Great story there.
You
I know it will resonate with loads of others.
really appreciate it.
Obviously, in the video below, there will be description. In the description, we'll drop some links to SOMA Breath. Certainly, a link to your colostrum, I think, which would be really useful for people. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. Lovely to have you
Beautiful.
here.
Much love, my friend.